When you hear the name BMW today, you probably think of speed, luxury, and perfect German engineering. But few people know that behind that name stands a man who never even dreamed of cars. Karl Rapp wasn't a visionary imagining sports cars and highways. He was an engineer obsessed with a single question: how to build an engine that would never fail. At a time when engines often exploded, overheated, or broke down mid-operation, Rapp believed perfection was possible if you were willing to do things differently. The idea that would later become BMW was born in a small workshop amid the chaos of industrial Germany. As the world slid into war, Rapp didn't want to make just another engine. He wanted to make something better than anything that existed. He wasn't chasing fame, he wasn't chasing the market, he was chasing precision. And what no one could have predicted back then was that this idea, born from pure engineering stubbornness, would one day create one of the most famous car brands in the world. Karl Rapp wasn't alone in this story. At the same time, Gustav Otto was working in Munich, the son of a legendary aviation pioneer, a man who first proved that humans could glide through the air like birds. Gustav grew up surrounded by the idea that there were no limits if you had the knowledge and the courage to try. His company also focused on aircraft engines, but unlike Rapp, Otto was more of a dreamer than a perfectionist. Fate brought their paths together at a time when Germany desperately needed reliable aviation. Small workshops merged, failed, and were reborn, and out of this industrial chaos, in 1916, a company emerged that would soon be called Barisch Motorenwerk. It still wasn't the BMW we know today. No cars, no luxury, no brand. There was only one thing: the need to make engines that could withstand extreme conditions, altitude, cold, and constant strain. This is where BMW's DNA was born, not on the roads, but in the air. Precision, power, and reliability weren't marketing slogans, they were a matter of survival. A mistake didn't mean a bad reputation, it meant a falling plane. And that philosophy, forged under war and pressure, would remain deeply embedded in BMW's identity long before anyone ever sat behind the wheel of one of their cars. Then came the moment that could have meant the end of everything. World War I ended, and with it vanished the demand for aircraft. Worse yet, the Treaty of Versailles forbade Germany from producing aircraft engines. For a company that had lived solely on them, it was a death sentence. Overnight, BMW had lost its purpose. No orders, no future, no clear path forward. In those moments, many companies simply disappeared, locked their doors, and never reopened. But the people at BMW made a decision that would change everything. If they could no longer reach the skies, they had to turn to the ground. They started making whatever they could, from industrial parts to motorcycles. It wasn't glamorous, but it was necessary. Every part they produced carried the same philosophy. It had to work perfectly. And it was almost out of desperation that BMW found its first real success on the ground: motorcycles. Fast, reliable, unlike anything else at the time. People began to notice that these engines had something special: stability, power, and a sense of control. BMW didn't yet know it would one day make cars, but even then, it was becoming clear that this company had the talent to create machines that weren't just transportation, but an extension of the human experience. So how did BMW become what we know today? After their success with motorcycles, the company slowly, almost cautiously, began experimenting with cars. And this is where the brand's true identity was born: precision, innovation, and a sense of control that no one else could offer. A car wasn't just a means of transport, it was an experience, almost a work of art in motion. In the 1930s, BMW launched its first automobiles, already showing what driving with soul truly meant. Design, engineering, even the sound of the engine, everything told the same story. This was no ordinary machine. It was a machine that respected the driver and challenged them to fall in love with every second behind the wheel. What Rapp had started in a small workshop, and what Otto had brought with his vision of flight, was now realized in cars that still leave an impression today. BMW didn't want to be just another car manufacturer. It wanted to be a symbol of freedom, precision, and passion for technology. And that's the DNA that continues from model to model, generation to generation. Every BMW carries the story of people who never accepted compromise, who believed that a machine could be more than metal and rubber, that it could be emotion today. When you see the BMW logo, you might think it's just a sign of luxury and speed, but behind it lies much more. The story of people who risked everything, who turned chaos and uncertainty into something that has lasted over a century. Karl Rapp and Gustav Otto didn't make cars out of a desire for fame, but out of a need to create the perfect engine, whether it flew or drove. Their passion, stubbornness, and belief in their idea shaped a company that still inspires millions around the world. BMW became a symbol of precision, passion, and innovation, but its true strength lies in the people behind it. Every curve, every engine note, every feeling when you sit behind the wheel, all of it carries a piece of that story. And maybe that's why, even after 100 years, drivers still feel that thrill every time they start a BMW. And in the end, perhaps the greatest lesson of BMW's story is this: great things don't happen by accident. They are born from passion, from stubbornness, and from believing that what you dream can become reality, even when no one else believes.